Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick one on the Celest Wyvern Abyss version. So I call this one the version because it's basically the same as the original Wyvern, but just in a much cooler looking shell. So I think they call this one Dragon Skin, Dragon Scale, something like that. But yeah, very, very cool pattern. You don't see that one too often, and I think they did a really great job on the shells, faceplate, very attractive. Those of you who bought the original Wyvern Pro, I think mine had the mic cable, and that mic cable was, I'll say it wasn't so great. This is a much better cable. It's actually one that you may have seen before. This kind of two-core twisted style cable. It's been around on other sets, and again, having it here, it's fine. It's actually really nice, and as I said, it's actually much better than the original cable that I reviewed the original Wyvern on, because that was, I think, the Wyvern Pro with the mic and all that stuff, and that one, I didn't like that cable at all, but this one, very much fine. So what is it? As I said, it's a Celest Wyvern in a better looking shell, and that's 100% true. So 8 months later, it still sounds like a solid set, and a lot of the things that I said about Wyvern originally, it's a really nice dynamic driver. It's a modified Harman style tuning, executed quite well on this 10mm LCP driver. There's nothing really wrong with it. They picked the right price. They got a great looking shell, nice cable. They pretty much hit all the important points that people are looking for at this price point. So no real complaints. It's just a solid set for what it is. And as I said, it's more of a modified Harman. So the bass, it's this 10mm LCP, has a nice controlled sub bass, slight boost in the mid bass, which is why I say it's a modified Harman over Harman, which is the general appealing move and the void sounding like a too lean move, right? So Harman, if you're into Harman style tunings, they tend to be a little leaner in the mid bass and a little bit brighter in the upper mids. By adding just a little bit more mid bass, you kind of get around that and have a little bit more natural sounding male vocal. So that's exactly what they did on the bass. On the mids, because there is some mid bass, that lower mids aren't so lean like I was just talking about, but also allowed to bring the mids forward a little bit. And we'll look at it on the graph in a second with a little earlier rise. So again, a very generally appealing move, forward but not too shouty if you keep your hand on the volume control. So they brought the mids a little bit forward, so they rise a little bit earlier, but instead of boosting them in the pin gain area too bright, they basically just let them rise a little forward. And that tends to, some people say that sounds a little bit shouty. It sounds a little bit shouty at higher volume, but at normal, regular, medium listening volume, it's actually kind of fine. There might be a track that comes across as too forward, and you just kind of click the volume knob down one, and it's kind of fine. But very much, they didn't go above Harman target, so bringing it up a little bit early is actually fine, and that keeps you from having recessed mids. It sounds, for people who are buying their first IEM, it sounds very reasonable, very familiar. There's no weird distance to the mids. They don't sound like they need to be boosted in any way. They're just kind of right there where they should be. So again, I'll say these two things, the mid bass and rising a little forward, two things that make it a very general appealing for people who aren't really buying IEMs every day. If this is your first IEMs, it will sound very familiar and kind of what you're expecting it to sound like. On the treble, and this is the part that stands out above some other sets, especially some similarly priced sets. And last time when I reviewed Wyvern, I said the upper treble, there's just enough upper treble to pop and carry the stage, and that's exactly what happens on this one as well. It just sounds like it takes on a boosted treble sound, but it's engaging in a fun way. So we'll look at the graph in 1 second. But that has a result. It gives you a really nice high stage, so all the upper treble is immediately noticeable in the width and the height. For depth, you want to take a look at the 2 to 4K and EQ that down if you want a little bit more depth, but try it. You might like it. So now let's kind of look quickly at three Amigos, three Harman, modified Harman style sets. So in the red, we have the Abyss, and which is like I said, there's kind of a more treble presence right there. So that's the Abyss at the top end. Right in the middle, Kiwi Ears Cadenza. And Kiwi Ears Cadenza essentially stands in for lots of sets that hug the Harman target, which you can't really see because it's hugging the target. But there's lots of sets that actually have the same exact level through 2 and 4 as Cadenza, and I just use Cadenza because it's kind of the middle of the road one. And then Delchi, which is your more relaxed, warmer, smoother, lower version. So that is the blue guy down there. So three flavors of a very similar style tuning. So you can kind of see they are pretty much exactly the same up until here. And then I talked about Celest Wyvern having an early rise. So yeah, it takes off a little bit early and it rises just about up to where the Harman target is at 10 dB. So I think they pulled that off really well. And again, like I said, they added this modified Harman where they add a little bit mid bass that gives you a little bit more body to your mids, makes male vocals sound a little bit better. Rising a little bit early kind of lets you have quite a bit of sub bass, the Harman target style sub bass, almost at 10 dB. Your mids don't fall back behind the bass as much because now they are brought in a little bit forward. They didn't rise too much over the Harman target, which would have given you a brighter that would have leaned out any advantage of having this here. So yeah, I think both of these things, it comes across as a very general appealing set. Which one to choose? There's not a right or wrong one. You have Wyvern Abyss. If more of your music and your interest is engagement out here, that is what Abyss does really well. Delchi is almost the opposite. It's for people who are into this more relaxed, bassier, warmer. If your interest in music is somewhere in this range, that's exactly where Delchi hits you, and it's really good at that part. It's definitely a lowered center set. Abyss is the upper centered set. All the sets that represented by cadenza are sort of the balanced version, and they're neither bassy nor bright. They tend to be the balanced Harman, and they take on this modified Harman because they have a little bit more mid bass. But the upper bit is basically going to hug the Harman target. And as I said, there's lots of sets that ride the same curve that cadenza does, but you have Abyss, kind of the upper, more treble, people who are kind of into the engagement, more energetic out here, and then Delchi are the people who are going to be out here, and then everything else is in between. So nothing wrong, nothing right, just different flavors of a modified Harman if that is the style of music and preference that you're into. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.